not is it great or is it really good? It's more like, is it unique?
Yeah.
Because that's something, we have so much music. And I think on Spotify per minute, a song is uploaded, if I read that correctly. I'm not sure. So can you imagine like
That's
per minute of
so,
songs being uploaded from really crappy to really great?
yeah.
And to me, I don't know, I've been just writing for so many years and working with so many producers. I'm just so over it has to sound like, or I want the next, Dua Lipa or The Weeknd, we want another song. Like, I hate it so much because I'm like, all of these hits were because they were unique, because somebody just went ahead and tried something new or something different. So that's something that for me is like my biggest goal, is just do something that's 100% you, that you can connect with, that you love.
Somewhere in between, right in the middle of two countries. Got the best of both worlds, but I'm never gonna fit in.
Welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. Today I have the one and only amazing singer, songwriter, producer, body percussionist, everything that you can think of, DEVADO with me. Welcome. I'm so excited.
Me too. Thank you so much that I got to be part of my premiere podcast. I've never done one before, so feel very honored.
Woo! I love being a premiere first podcast. That makes me feel, nice and special. So I hope it'll be a great experience. But I'm very, very excited because, first of all, you are the first German guest on here.
Really?
Yes.
Representing. Woo!
Yeah. Like I'm like, oh, why haven't I had anyone from Germany on here yet? And plus, also American. Like you're like me, half German, half American. So that's one of like the main reasons that I reached out as well, because that has a lot to do with your single that you recently brought out, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get into all of that, the first question that I like to ask, that every artist loves, and I hope you don't feel like a broken record, but introduce yourself. Where are you from? Where are you coming live from? What got you into songwriting and producing and like all the body percussion and everything? So
okay, how much time do I have?
Well,
I'll try to keep it sweet and short.
yeah. Well, you can take as much time as you want. This is not a 10-minute podcast. So.
Okay, cool. So I half German, half American, born and raised in Germany. My mom's from San Francisco, California. So I grew up speaking English at home, but I went to German school. My dad's German. So it was always like, this cocktail of Jinglish, I guess, German and English. So I go back and forth. I have 4 older sisters. I'm the youngest of 5.
Yeah.
And so we would go back and forth all the time. And people that would come visit, they're like, this is so weird. You've got like your own language.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
DEVADO is basically, it's an alias of my name, Debbie Van Doren, which is Dutch. It's got a Dutch, my dad's side of the family, he also has Dutch roots. And about a year and a half ago, basically, I gave myself a new alias because I have been working as a singer also my entire life. Also have worked for Disney, done German Disney movies, and that kind of took over my Spotify. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to say bye to Debbie Van Doren because my music, which is urban pop, contemporary R&B, doesn't really go well with German musical.
Yeah.
So it's basically, if you know Moana, I'm the German Vaiana. So
no way.
Yeah.
What? Okay, we're gonna talk about that in a minute, but
okay.
Keep going. That just
spoiler alert. No, I'm joking. So that's basically DEVADO, stands for Debbie Van Doren put together. And I grew up singing and dancing since my parents are both super talented, and my dad was also a musician. He wrote songs. My mom and my dad were both huge Beatles fans.
Yeah.
So that kind of brought them together too, I guess. So a big love for songwriting.
Yeah.
And my oldest sister is also a singer, so she's actually 13 years older than me. So I had the chance to, grow up on stage performing.
Yeah.
She let me, take over the microphone, and I learned the choreography, and my sisters also did background vocals. And
Yeah.
so I guess I was just born and raised into the whole music industry kind of. And when I was a kid, I was like, I want to do more, mom, send me to castings. So my mom would kind of, go with me and just, manage me as good as she could.
Yeah.
And so I basically started off even in a girl hip hop group where, we had we learned, hip hop, dancing, singing, and trained 4 days a week and went on tour. And then later I did musicals. And then during that whole process, I think I was 8 when I started actually writing songs and being like, okay, this is really something I want to do for the rest of my life because I just love it so much.
Yeah.
So it's funny actually because my newest single, Never Gonna Fit In, I feel like it kind of goes back to the roots because I remember my first performance of the first song I wrote.
Yeah.
I had a tape recorder, rest in peace tapes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's still a thing, but anyway,
Yeah.
I had this. Yeah, exactly. I had this tape recorder, this super cute pink one with the mic attached, and basically I wrote a song, and I'm like, okay, how can I perform it? Because we always had these family shows, and so what I did is basically I snapped, to have the beat. And then I recorded, and I was singing along in my head, knowing what I'd be singing, and then I did the harmonies too, so I would have my actual playback. And then I would let that play and have a different recorder recording that. So that's kind of the first, when it goes into arrangement and producing, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of, I've just always liked to do that, and I always had kind of a vision of what I want the song to sound like.
Yeah.
So that was my first production to a song. And I guess like any musician, you start going to labels, you've got these big visions of you're gonna make it big, and did all of that, worked with millions of producers. And aside from that, when I was around 14, I started producing myself, basically wanting, because I always worked with producers.
Yeah.
And I was always like, I have these ideas, but they don't get it. And how can I, convey and show them my idea, rather than just kind of like being this dumb little teenager sitting like, can you do it like this? So I started with Pro Tools, and I remember going to the first class on learning how to. No, it wasn't Pro Tools. It was Cubase, right?
Cubase. Wow.
There was all these dudes, and I was like this 14-year-old girl. I felt so uncomfortable, but I'm like, okay, who cares? Just you're here to learn.
Yeah.
It was before we had YouTube tutorials and everything. You actually went to a class.
Yeah, you had to go where and ask people. Yeah,
exactly. And then I just started, and I've always had a big love for harmonies and vocal arrangements. So I think the first tracks I did were a cappella and kind of like beatboxing and stuff like that, just before because I was fast at it. So it's like, okay, get my idea out there. And then I started going into the whole production and the MIDI and how does, the technical side. But yeah, so that's kind of when the whole producing thing started. And then I would work with producers and kind of give them the demo. And they would take it from there. And a few years ago, I was just like, I think purely out of being comfortable with just co-producing and not actually doing the 100% in all of the technical details. Actually, it was my husband. I'm also married, BT Dub. My husband was like, he's my biggest cheerleader. So he was like, you know what? You should just learn to do it all by yourself. And I'm like, well, but that means, learning more stuff and getting all technical. And, I like to be creative, but the technical side I'm not like this big, super techie person or anything. But I actually did 1 year long, like an online school. Right now I don't use Cubase anymore. I use Ableton Live. And, I knew the basics and everything, but I did basically like an online school from, intro to music to production to mixing to mastering and everything.
Wow.
And I learned so much, and it was like the best investment ever. So if anybody's into production and, is not happy with only you having YouTube videos,
Yeah.
it's so worth, learning from the pros and then having teachers look into my projects and seeing it in real time how they're working on things and basically answering any question I ever have. So yeah, that really helped me, and that's basically when DEVADO was born. And I decided I'll just start producing myself, and knowing I'll get better, and knowing it's still not all perfect, but you gotta just go for it. And so that's basically what I've been doing the past 1.5 years, is releasing music that I produced, and then also now along the way I've also met a few other producers where we're kind of trying out things together. And, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot I probably forgot and left out, but that's kind of in a nutshell who DEVADO is. And,
I know it's a hard question because, like, how do you take, I don't know, 20 plus years and like cram it into like 10 minutes? It's like, obviously it's like the hardest thing. But I mean, that's already like a lot. Like, I don't even know what to add. Like, there's so many questions. I'm like, what, how? And I mean, dang, like, first of all, I didn't know that you also did Disney for so are you like the voiceover, or do you just do the singing parts, or what's like, did you contact them, or did they contact you, or how does that process even look like?
Okay. Then I do have to start way back, because I already as a kid, I got my sister was German Ariel. And so it's kind of like my mom, she tried to do her best, and she managed us like for years. So she would send out demos to studios. And by the time I was born, she kind of knew how it works. And knowing that I was like super antsy and like more, she sent my demos to studios, and then I was invited to castings and stuff like that. So basically, when I was like 8 or 9, I did Lion King part 2, and then I did Ariel part 2, the daughter of Ariel. And then I did, what did I do? Oh, Prince of Egypt, Little Miriam. And so I had already kind of, had my contacts in that whole thing to my mom. And then for years, I was just so focused on my own music. I didn't really touch base or anything with the whole Disney scene. And then 2015, I was part of the Voice of Germany, the show. And after I was up into the battles, and then I got kicked out. And then after that, I was invited to the casting for Moana. In German, it's called Vaiana. They had to change the name. And so I just went to the casting. I went to the casting for the speaking part and singing. But they only ended up taking me for the singing part because they wanted a celebrity for the, they always need, obviously, people, to bring, more audience into the cinemas, which is totally fine. So that was like really cool, because that was my first big lead role, and it's such a cool movie. And
it's like one of my favorites.
It's awesome. It's really awesome. Well, now you have to watch it in German now.
Now I have to, like, because obviously I always watch them in English, but like now I have to go back. So you do just the singing part?
Yeah, exactly. Just the singing part. And then after that movie, did you watch Smallfoot?
No.
Oh yeah, okay. It's not Disney. After that, I got to do the German Zendaya. Zendaya sang one part in English, which was also really cool, because these movies all have amazing songs. So as a singer, like, whoa, a big challenge and also fun. But definitely not, my go-to music when it comes to listening to music. It's fun to sing it. But that's the reason why, at some point I had to like get away from Debbie Van Doren, because it was just lots of Disney fans out there wanting to listen to the music, and my music just does not fit well. Audience.
But that's really cool, like that. I guess that has, that gives you a very like unique also way of looking at things and songs, and also than just people that just see themselves as like songwriters, because you've had like this like incredible like journey since you've been like small, and and also been on The Voice, like 2015 you said. I gotta go back and watch that now.
I got to sing an Ed Sheeran song, which was awesome. I was so nervous. I've never been that nervous. Like, I mean, another level. I mean, it's crazy because you only have 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like hit or miss. And
What team were you on?
It's a German artist. His name is Andreas Burani.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And funny enough, my sister is also a vocal coach on The Voice, and none of the coaches knew that we were sisters, because they didn't want to have any, what would you call it, like maybe be biased.
Yeah.
And only he turned around and my sister was on his team, and I'm like, no. I mean, I love my sister, and we're really good and professional with splitting work and personal, but I think I felt really bad for Andreas, because I think he was like, wait, what?
That is hilarious. I had no idea. Then this is something that really interests me, because like a lot of artists think I have to be on a big show like American Idol, The Voice, X Factor, name them, whatnot. What advice would you give those artists? Because for me, they're a TV show, right? They
totally. I mean, for me, to be honest, it was at a point where I was really questioning, is this really what I want? Because you can be a singer, like just in studios, not actually being an artist, just working, doing jobs as a vocalist. And is it still my passion? Because for a few years, I was just so frustrated that doors kept shutting. Mm-hmm. And I guess, most artists can relate to that. Yeah. At some point you're like, okay, well maybe, this is all that's just stupid and I'm not being realistic enough, and I just got to say no and just do something completely different. Mm-hmm. And to me, The Voice was like just testing the waters, not like going there being like, okay, I'm gonna win and this is really what I want. Yeah. First of all, I wanted to meet other artists because, where I live is kind of like suburban, like outside of Munich. Yeah. And I am never surrounded by any artists. So that was number one, just to network. Number two was also just to see, is this still what I really love? Of course, it's not my own songs, but, you have the cameras, you've got the interviews, you've got everything that has to do with being an artist, if you want to be, mainstream artist at least. Yeah. And just kind of testing the waters, I guess, but also knowing it's a TV show. My life is not dependent on this. And I mean, it's not the real reality of everything. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I dove into the whole music industry as a child. So I already, got to live that life of touring and, interviews and magazines and everything. And I loved it. And then as when I was around, 13, 14, after the musicals were done, it was kind of like drop, and then it was like just, me as a songwriter and performing with my own songs and with my sisters for many years. And then it just kind of felt like this is not really going anywhere. And I don't really know if this is really what I want. Mm-hmm. Or if I'm also if I'm good enough, mm-hmm. There's so many great artists out there. Yeah. And so when I went there, it was like, it like totally sparked, a new passion and new fire. Is like, okay, this is what I was born to do and I love it. And I cannot fool myself and pretend like, this isn't anything that I really, really love. And so I would say anybody that is willing to test waters, just go for it, because you learn so much. Mm-hmm. You learn about the music industry. You learn, obviously, your skill set. You get way better at it. But you have to know it's a show. This is not the real thing. And even if you win, it's still not real. You're going to win and then nobody's going to know who you are a few months later. So you just have to be aware of that. And I feel like it's super important, like that you own it, that you go there and that you know what you want, because they're going to want everything. And they're just focused on the show. Mm-hmm. And so I think you just got, if you're like, if you don't have thick skin, or if you're very vulnerable, or if you're very insecure, then maybe it's not the right thing at that point. It could be at some point. And yeah, so for me, it was a great experience. I learned a whole bunch and lots of networking, which is that was my main goal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't do anything like that again. I feel like been there, done that. It was fun. But at this point, I wouldn't do another show unless maybe I'm part of the judge. That would be cool.
Ooh, that would be awesome. That would be really cool. I think a lot of artists go in with the mindset that I need to win it in order to make it, right? They're like, oh, then but I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like, it's a TV show, right? Like I said, you'll win it, and then after a few months, nobody will care, basically.
Yeah, obviously there's contracts. I mean, who wants that? And
that's a big one.
Lots of things that's just enough said.
No. I mean, that's a whole new thing, with like labels and contracts and you know, signing away your rights, and I think being like, I don't know, like Taylor Swift being her first album, Lover, that her, like, what was that, her 7th album that she like fully owned, like the
I know. It's crazy,
right? Like,
but I mean, we are in such a cool age, at the moment. Of course, the market is just flooded because it's available to everybody. But do not need a label, which I think is fantastic, because it is a lot of work, of course, and we don't have a huge team being an indie artist. But nobody's pressuring me. Nobody's saying you have to do this. Nobody's saying you have to look a certain way. You have your own, you can connect with your audience whatever way you want to, and you're owning everything. So I feel like as an indie artist, now is the best time. But a lot of you need a lot of skill sets, and it's not enough just to sing well or write well. You got to have the marketing. You got to know about marketing. There's just so much that goes with it that's not fun. So I feel like, you want to sign and have a label do the work, but then they might not even do the work. Haha. And you'll just be one of a million on some shelf and can't release anything until you're free. So no.
Exactly. Like, I don't think that, like, again, like, everyone's goal is to get signed, right? I'm like, I don't make sure you're signing the right thing, because I've had friends where they had to take an artist break, where they like, oh, you're not allowed to actually put out anything for the first like 2 years, or you're like, oh, this relationship isn't working out, and then you're stuck for the next 4 or whatever years you've signed on. So that's what Kesha, that's why nobody heard from her for such a long time, because she couldn't get out of a contract, so everything she was writing was hers.
JoJo too. Do you know JoJo?
Oh yeah, JoJo. Yeah.
She did like covers for years. I mean, how sad. She did like tours with cover songs because she couldn't, and just her own song, but she could not release anything new. I mean, it's so sad. But that's the reality. I mean, no matter how much money you have or how so-called famous you already are, you still can be in such a mess. But that's a whole
new thing. But I mean, I just think it's interesting to kind of like touch upon that, because I think that's a lot of what I see a lot. I mean, I caught myself with that mindset, and I know that a lot of people listening and also other artists have that mindset of, oh, I need to get signed, when the reality is like, no, you don't. Like, I just kind of feel like a broken record sometimes.
In the end, a label won't want you unless you have a huge fan base anyway.
True.
So once you have that fan base, why would you want to start sharing? You know what I mean? So it's like, it doesn't really make sense. And I mean, there are a few exceptions, like a Dua Lipa or something like that, she had the amazing manager that found her, and it only took a few years and she, exploded. But that's the exception. So, I always feel like, and I'm still learning, I'm obviously also, just a small fish in a huge pond, but I'm trying, and I feel like that's something we all should try as artists, is finding your niche, like finding exactly what do you stand for. And it doesn't have to be millions of people.
Yes.
You just need to find those people that love your music, that you can connect with, that you can become actual friends with, you know, and if they support you, you can already, you know, make a living, whatever. I feel like that's, rather being a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in the big pond. That's kind of like something I think we need to learn, because we're always thinking of this. I mean, at least for me, I've always got like big, you know, big visions, big dreams and stuff, but it's like, okay, wait, let's start here.
No, I can, again, like you think of sold out arenas and millions of fans. To actually make a decent living as a musician, you just need between like 500 and like 1,000 super fans.
Totally, yeah.
That's it. That's it. If they give you $100 every month, you have 500 of them.
Yeah.
That's $5,000 every month.
Yeah.
Can that, I mean, that's like almost like triple what I make now, you know, so. But anyways, those, I mean, I think I love that, because I didn't even have to ask the question, but usually I like to ask what like the biggest misconception is within the music industry. And I mean, I think we just hit on quite a few of them. But I want to talk about your song, actually. Yes. The way I found it was through the radio, because here in Germany, I now know that I listen to Bayern 3, and here it's a quite big radio station, like Bayern 3, Antenne Bayern, all those, they're like quite big radio stations over here in Germany. So, and so I like, once I heard the song and heard the introduction, I'm like, I need to look you up on Instagram. I need to listen to like, you actually reached out first, which blew my mind, because I usually don't, usually I'm always the one like, messaging people and stuff. And so I'm like, wow, she's like even cooler than, than I thought, because like, I just love people that, reach out and, and was even a video message. I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that. So I'm like, how do I figure this out so I don't look like a complete idiot, like that doesn't know how to do stuff. But what I think, again, to not make you feel like a broken record, but Never Gonna Fit In has a really cool backstory. Can you just like sum it up? People that don't know this song or don't know what it's about, because I didn't believe it at first.
Okay. I guess we'll split it into production, and we'll split it into lyrics and story.
Exactly.
So actually, I wrote the song 2017, which is super long. As a songwriter, if you've got these songs, it's like, oh, it's so old. Yeah. But I've always loved it, and I think I did like 4 versions of it, and I just like, okay, I don't like it, boom, and then at some point get it out again. So that's that. And the story Never Gonna Fit In, for me personally, and what I talk about is just being in Germany, growing up here, but being half American. I feel like a big part of me is American, and German culture and German mentality is in a lot of ways so different than American. But yet I'm both, and always kind of getting that kind of conflict of, it's kind of weird and I don't fit in. I'm too loud, I'm too smiley, too positive, too optimistic. I dream too big, I move too much. And then, but sometimes then when I'm in the States, it's like, oh my gosh, they're like so far from reality, that I can hear like my German mentality and like, oh, they're wasting so much and I can't believe they're throwing, it's just, and then it's always like this kind of weird conflict. So that's my story, and kind of also, I also love humor. Mm-hmm. So I talk, and I kind of have like a rap part talking about like, all of the be a little more realistic, be first and not too risque. But then I've got the, miss my Lucky Charms, where's my root beer? Just like fun things that, resonates with me, thinking, German American cliches kind of. So that's basically my story. And also telling myself, I'm somewhere in between, right in the middle of 2 parties, but got the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
but I'm never gonna fit in.
Yeah.
And also just having like something fun, and
Mhm.
also a reminder that it's totally okay. We all feel like we don't fit in. It doesn't have to be the cultural side of things, but there are so many factors. I could mention a whole bunch, even for me, like, is it pop? Is it R&B?
Yeah.
How do you describe? I mean, there's so many things where I always feel like I just don't fit in, you know? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically what the song is about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody will find kind of their own story to it.
Yeah.
And as far as the production, that's actually something that I started learning during my online school when it came to production.
Mm.
Is how to work with samples and to learn the tools of sampling your own, you know, your voice or whatever. So obviously every DAW, in my case, for example, Ableton Live, they have their sound library, you know, with the all of the sounds that you can just, okay, now I want the kick, now I want this.
Yeah.
And then at some point I was like, I would love to have my own sound library so I can, you know, take my own sounds and kind of have like a unique sound that all of my songs kind of has something similar. So it's more like an experiment to just be like, okay, let me take the song that's been laying on, you know, the shelf for a few years and try something completely different. Let's just erase everything. And then I love Pharrell, I love Timbaland, Ron Belkin. Those are like some of my favorite producers, and they've got kind of the hip hop vibe, the kind of the crunch to it, but then also, you know, that drop it like it's hot where they do the and I thought that was so cool. And then, you know, Timbaland, he always does a lot of like beatboxing and weird noises and stuff. So then I was like, okay, let me just, you know, start with the beat, you know, and then I'm not a beatboxer. So I was like, okay, what else could I do? So I did like a chest thump and then tried to like manipulate the sounds that it would sound. That's where the technical side comes in. Did the snaps, did the, all of those kind of sounds, and then the hi-hat and stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should do everything. So then I started doing the bass, creating my own bass. And then I went to the other instruments and decided, okay, I'll just do my own bass. Okay, I'll do my own synth. Okay, I'll you know, layer the vocals more. And then that's what happened. So that's basically was like, first I thought it's like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like now I might have kind of started something. So I think I'm just going to keep doing that and see how creative can I get and how can I push myself, and just restrict myself to not using any other, you know, finished sound from sound libraries and just create my own and see how creative I can get. And then we'll see, you know, it might, I don't know if I'm just going to stay with that or if it might evolve to something else. I don't know.
That's really cool. 'Cause it's funny that you mentioned restrictions, because I've been noticing that a lot of like artists, or especially also producers, are like using that. They're like, okay, what melody can I come up with these 4 notes? They'll just give, you know, they're like, okay, or, you know, with just these instruments, or, you know, if you're usually writing it on the guitar, go and write it on the piano, you know, or go pick up the ukulele or the drums or whatnot. Like, they'll give yourself these limitations to like come up with new stuff that you usually wouldn't, you know, think of. So I thought it was very interesting that, you know, you built that entire song just from body percussion, like, and like vocals. And, you know, when you listen to the song, it's just like, no way, like there's no way. Like when I heard it on the radio, I'm like, there's no way this is just like body percussion and just vocals. But then watch the music video and you will understand how it's been done.
I think it's so cool because in my head, you know, the critical artist is like, this sucks, it's so stupid, it sounds so dumb, you know, it doesn't, you know, it would have to be way bigger and stuff. But yeah, it's cool to hear, you know, because I feel like you always have to kind of take these risks. And, you know, it could go this way or that way, and but just be willing to try it out because you just never know. And if it's crappy, you can take it down, or I don't know. And like for me, I also love, interviews and the whole, behind the scenes of artists that I love. And I'm always so sad, if they take down like their first production or their first pictures, because it's like you want to see the process, because that's how it is. Nobody's just like famous overnight, or this, that just doesn't happen. There's always a process. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm tempted, with some of my productions, like, it's the streaming isn't very well. I'll take it down. But then I'm like, you know what? I should just leave it, because it's always interesting. I feel like, who knows where this journey is going to go, but to see, where it kind of started, and to show that that's just part of being an artist, is growing and getting better and finding your sound, and, and evolving. And it's always so sad to just be like, boom, here she is, and this is just not
nowhere.
Exactly. That's not how it is. And that's something that I try to do in my Instagram stories, is also just kind of talk about the challenges, the ups and downs, and showing kind of what's happening. And, that I also work as a songwriter for DJ projects and stuff like that. The reality of what you have to be very broad as an artist, because you can't make a living of just, uploading music and then hoping, that's just not the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I love that you say that, because I mean, I hope this is what the podcast does, is that's why I have so many different musicians all on here from all different walks of life, different countries, so you can see like this is what real musicians are doing. Like this is not the 1% that is Dua Lipa or Billie Eilish or Shawn Mendes, because those are like the 1% people, but the majority of us, we're just kind of doing a lot of different things and showing the process, and that's why I was debating like my very first podcasts that I did like 2 years ago now. I almost took them down because I'm like, they're so cringy. I sang just
I know that
stuff, and it's like, no, I'm gonna leave them on to show the process, to show people, it's awesome. Not, you don't just know what to say, you don't just know what questions to ask, you don't know how to react on camera and what to say and what to ask and all that stuff, and that's, I think it's very important, and that's why I love in particular your Instagram feed and your stories, because you show the behind the scenes. You said, especially for Never Gonna Fit In, that's how I knew that you've like rewritten it so many times, because you said it, like there was a post, I don't know if it was a story or a post, you're like, I rewrote this song so many times.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's interesting because like, even that I shared that because I'm super impatient.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not a perfectionist, to be honest. I was like, I can't really relate to that whole concept of perfect, because I'm like, what is perfect? There is no perfect. You know what I mean? So I always say to people like, I'm a perfectionist. And I was like, no, you have your own mindset, and you just want it to be the way, have it the way you want it. It's nothing perfect about it. Like, I don't get it. Like, if it's something good or bad, or, I don't understand it. Anyway, but, with this, I was like, maybe I do, like, maybe I am a bit specific and, want to keep working on things. And because usually I'm like, don't like it, boom, dump it next. Yeah. But I guess in this case, it just had something, I guess, that I felt like was worth giving a shot. And then I added the rap part way later, and then I took out the second verse, then I did it in a different key. So there's a lot of things I tried out. And
wow. How many times, so how long did it actually take you to finish the song? Like, obviously you wrote it in 2017, but like, since you like repurposed it, recycled the song, how long did it take you to finish?
Well, I couldn't tell you any hours because I don't know. I lose time when I work.
I'm here.
But I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would sum it up and just be like, if I would imagine working like a full day only on one song, maybe a week or two. I don't know, because you keep going back and like listen, you listen to it, and then you're like, you listen to it then in your speakers in the car on my earphones, and then you know, somewhere else is like, oh, this part isn't good, or oh, I need to fix that.
Yeah.
So once I did that, I also have to be honest about that. I had somebody that helped me with the mix because I knew, you know, to bring it to that radio level or whatever, there are a lot of technical things that even if I know, I don't have the experience.
Yeah.
So I did have somebody on board to help me with the mix. So I had like my mix the way I wanted it, because it's like, you forget, or if you don't know much about, you know, producing and everything, mixing is like, that's it, because you can have a really great song, but if the mix is crappy, forget the whole song. You can have a crappy song, but if the mix is fantastic, it'll sell you the song. So to me, I feel like mixing is so underrated. And I'm getting better at it, but at least, you know, I have like my rough mix and be like, please, as close as you can, get to that. And then also there went like a back and forth, and the mix, the guy that helped me with the mixing, he had his spin on things. I'm like, yeah, no, this needs to be louder, this quieter. Can you do this? So that was like the last phase of working on it. But that was basically together with somebody. So yeah, a week, 2 weeks, I don't know. I really can't tell you. I mean, when I actually like pulled it out of my shelf, it was end of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. That's when I introduced it to my teacher with the online school. I'm like, okay, I have this idea. What do you think? You know, is this possible? And he listened to it. He's like, that's not your voice. I'm like, no, it is really. He's like, really? And then I thought, well, if he doesn't believe me, then maybe I'm onto something here. I'll keep going. It's not, because in my head, I'm always like, everything's crappy. You're so bad. You can't call yourself a producer. You know, there's always like these, everybody knows these voices you have, you know. But that really gave me confidence, you know, having a teacher being like, it's actually cool, you know, for me, it's more like, not is it great or is it really good? It's more like, is it unique? Because that's something, we have so much music. And I think on Spotify per minute, a song is uploaded, if I read that correctly. I'm not sure. So can you imagine like per minute, a song is being uploaded from really crappy to really great? And to me, I don't know, I've been just writing for so many years and working with so many producers. I'm just so over, it has to sound like, or I want the next, you know, Dua Lipa or The Weeknd, you know, we want another song. Like, I hate it so much, because I'm like, all of these hits were because they were unique, because somebody just went ahead and tried something new or something different. So that's something that for me is like my biggest goal, is just do something that's 100% you, that you can connect with, that you love. And of course it has to somewhere, you know, fit somewhere in the middle. But, you know, I, as an artist, I want to be known for, this is the girl who, you know, Billie Eilish has her whispery voice. That's the girl who, you know what I mean? So that's something that I'm always striving for and working on. And you just need, I think, a lot of not just creativity, but courage to just try stuff out. And sometimes it needs more work and it takes longer. But it might be worth it then. I don't know.
For sure. That's really good advice. That's really, really, really good advice. Because I had nothing to add. It's just really good advice.
I mean, I have to say, my husband and I, we get annoyed at each other, because that's like all we talk about. He's like my partner in crime, and we both have such a big passion and vision where we want to go with music. He actually has a totally normal daytime job, and then when he gets home, it's like back to music. And, you know, we need to discuss this, and he just does my website, and he helps me with all of, you know, all of the other things. But we talk about music and business so much. So it's like, that's just, you know, I eat and breathe, you know, also learning from others out of the business and other artists. And
yes, this is the perfect platform to do it on. That's all I do. Is, you know, talking with the musicians and everything. But thank you so much for your time, and you know, and you know, giving really good advice. Thank you so much. There's a closing question I always like to ask that is very interesting because everyone answers it differently. So my closing question is, what makes a good song?
What makes a good song? Oh my gosh, that's so hard.
That's why it's at the end.
Four words. Wait, what makes a good? No, 5 words.
Yeah.
I think. Well, what's good?
There's no right or wrong answer, by the way.
What I mean, like, to everybody, something else is good. And there are so many reasons why something can be good. And I mean, in the end, it's why does it resonate with you? Like, why does it spark something in you? And I feel like it can be so many different things, from just a catchy melody, which is something I love. I focus a lot on melodies. But it can also be just the feeling, you know, it could be the crappiest lyrics and not a catchy melody, but the feeling just takes you places where you're like, I remember when I heard that song. I mean, for myself, I love, to me, beat, bass, and melody is like, I only need those. If those work, everything else could just be quietly, but that's just, you know, like, for example, Lord's Royals.
Be royals, yeah, everyone like can sing it like instantly.
I mean, it's just amazing vocals, amazing vocal arrangement.
Yeah.
Really cool melody. Crazy weird lyrics. And then it's just amazing drums and bass. That's it. And I feel like, and there's some synth happening, but that's my personal taste, you know, just keeping it minimalistic, but less is more.
Less is more.
100%.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been a joy. I got to learn so many new things, and, you know, my mind is still blown from like all the different things you've been doing, you know. So wow, like that explains so many things though, like why, you know, your music is so cool and unique, and so addictive. Like for me, I had to like listen to like all of the songs, and you know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
that's so nice to hear, because I mean, there's so much coming this year. Like literally every 6 weeks a new song is coming out. Also a lot of collaborations, so some is just like a featuring Devado. But yeah, I love music. So cool. Thank you to anybody that wants to listen to my music or share it with their friends, or, you know, support an indie artist. I love if we can, you know, support each other, which is something that I love to do also on Instagram. Is, you know,
and this is what this podcast is.
You know, it's always fun to meet other artists.
Awesome. Where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? Where can they go?
I mean, like most people, you'll find me everywhere, but I would say my base is Instagram. So if you go to Devado Music, that's where you'll find me, right here. You can't see it, but on YouTube you can see my studio, which is where I'm sitting, which is where I almost eat, sleep, and breathe. Where everything's produced and written and recorded. And so see you on Instagram. I would love to meet you. I love meeting new people, and
much for that.
See how I can bring some joy and encouragement to others, because I feel like we all love being creative and passionate about something. And I think it's always fun to encourage each other in whatever passion it is you have.
Yep. Amen to that. Nothing to add there. Thank you so much for being on here and chatting with me, being my guest, and being just awesome and sharing.
Thank you so much, Alise. Anytime. I love sharing, and I love talking, and I love meeting people. So anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Musician's Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Alise Koa. I hope you got to learn something new about producing or songwriting or mental health when it comes to making music. The fears that most musicians have
when making music. So everything that's behind the scenes, behind making music, you will learn it here because I'm basically talking to anyone that makes music all around the world. So I have a great privilege to learn all of that, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So follow this podcast if you enjoyed what you heard today, and go and share it with somebody that you think could enjoy this episode as well, benefit and learn from it. And as always, there's more information at alisekoa.com/podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Somewhere in between, right in the middle of two countries. Got the best of both worlds, but I'm never gonna fit in.